I knew my life was about to derail the moment she smiled at me like I was both a joke and a warning sign. And to be fair, I deserved both. The day I met Ava Sterling, the girl the entire city whispered about, I was standing on a cracked sidewalk in downtown Chicago pretending I wasn't watching her get her heart broken in public. Pretending, of course, was pointless. I saw everything. The Sterling family had an entire skyscraper with their name glowing white against the night sky. But the girl herself stood in front of me like any other 20-something getting disappointed by someone she should have never trusted. Her then-girlfriend, a model whose entire personality consisted of expensive cheekbones and a self-worshipping Instagram account, was hurling accusations loud enough to spook pigeons off the power lines. I could have stepped in. Should have maybe. But I didn't. I just stood there with my paper cup of coffee, trying to blend into the world like a smudge in the margins. I didn't know that within a week, Ava Sterling would drag me into the center of her world, unravel my life like the hem of a cheap sweater, and teach me what it meant to fall for someone who burned too bright and too dangerously close. Chicago had a way of swallowing people whole. I used to think I was the exception. Turns out I was just waiting for the right storm. Ava. The truth is that I had no business being anywhere near her that morning. I was supposed to be on my way to the art supply shop where I worked, a job that paid enough to keep my fridge half full and my apartment heater running on days when the wind didn't feel like a personal insult. But the buses were running late, the universe was being dramatic, and so I walked. And then I saw her. Ava Sterling. The heiress who'd been on billboards a few months ago, advertising her family's philanthropic foundation. The girl with the kind of face that made people say things like she looks expensive. Even crying, she looked like she had been sculpted by someone with too much talent and too much time. I didn't know her yet, not really, but something about the way she swallowed her pain made my chest ache. Her girlfriend stormed off in a swirl of designer fury, heels clicking down the sidewalk like gunshots. Ava remained standing there, arms wrapped around herself, staring straight ahead at a place nobody else could see. And then she looked at me. Me, the stranger who hadn't bothered to pretend I wasn't witnessing her public humiliation. Her eyes flashed with something sharp. But instead of yelling or demanding privacy, she walked right up to me. "You saw all of that, didn't you?" she said. I opened my mouth, closed it, then nodded like an idiot. She exhaled, half laughing, half breaking. "Great. Just great. That was the beginning. I should introduce myself before this gets messy. My name is Lily Hart. I'm 24, an artist who works part-time because capitalism hates dreamers, and the kind of person who cries during insurance commercials. I also have a habit of getting attached to people I have no earthly reason to get attached to. A dangerous habit in hindsight. When Ava caught me staring that morning, I thought she'd walk away and that would be it. A strange moment between two strangers. But instead she said, "Come with me." Just like that. No explanation. No hesitation. I blinked. "What? Why?" "Because I'm having the worst morning of my life," she said, brushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "And you look like you won't lie to me." I should have run. I should have made an excuse, hurried to my underpaid job, and forgotten the way her voice dipped when she was trying not to fall apart. Instead, I followed her. Because of course I did. She took me into a small cafe tucked between two brick buildings, the kind with mismatched mugs and indie music playing a little too loudly. We sat by the window, the city humming outside as if nothing extraordinary was happening. She ordered chamomile tea. I ordered whatever was cheapest. Then she said, "I'm Ava Sterling." I pretended not to already know. "Lily," I said. "Lily," she repeated like she was testing the weight of it. I didn't know why my heart stuttered. "So," I ventured cautiously, "do you want to talk about what happened?" She stared out the window. "Not yet." Silence stretched. Thick, heavy, but not uncomfortable. Then she turned to me abruptly. "Why didn't you step in?" I swallowed hard. Honesty had always been both my curse and my saving grace. "Because you didn't look like you wanted help," I said softly. "You looked like you were enduring something you already expected." Ava's breath caught. For a moment the heiress mask slipped, and I saw the girl beneath. A girl who had been disappointed far too many times. A girl who wasn't nearly as untouchable as the world believed. "You're not wrong," she whispered. And just like that, something shifted between us. Something quiet but irreversible. Over the next few days, I told myself I wouldn't see her again. She belonged to penthouses and charity galas. I belonged to peeling paint walls and a landlord who thought fixing things was optional. But Ava had other plans. On the fourth day after we met, she walked into the art shop. Just walked in. Like she hadn't turned my life sideways. She wore a long beige coat, her hair tumbling around her shoulders, eyes bright despite the chilly air clinging to her cheeks. Customers stared. My boss whispered something about celebrities. She found me rearranging paintbrushes I had already rearranged 3 times. "You didn't call," she said. "I don't have your number," I replied, baffled. Her lips twitched. "Right. Then you didn't hunt down my number. Either way, you didn't call." I stared at her. "Ava, we're not anything." "Not yet," she said smoothly. My heart did a weird traitorous flip. "Aren't you supposed to be? I don't know. Recovering from a breakup? Maybe not flirting with strangers you met on the sidewalk." "Strangers don't usually follow me into cafes," she countered. I glared. She smirked. Customers kept pretending not to eavesdrop. She stepped closer. "Come with me." There it was again. Her favorite command. "I'm working," I said. She looked at my boss. "How much for the rest of her shift?" My boss named a price so fast I nearly choked. Ava paid it without blinking. And just like that, I was outside again, pulled into the orbit of a beautiful girl whose world spun faster than mine was ever meant to. We walked along the river, wind tugging at our coats and carrying the scent of cold water and roasted chestnuts from a nearby street vendor. "Why me?" I finally asked. Ava glanced at me, expression softening. "You looked at me like a person, not a headline." My chest tightened. "Everyone looks at you. You shine. That just makes it lonelier," she murmured. We stopped at the railing overlooking the water. The city lights shimmered like stars pretending to be closer than they were. "Ava," I said gently, "I'm not sure I belong in your world." She shook her head. "I don't want you in my world, Lily. I want you in my life." My breath caught. I didn't know it then, but this moment, this sentence, this stolen hour by the river would become the first thread of the complicated, fragile, breathtaking thing we were about to build together. A thread that would almost snap. A thread that would later save us both. The first real fracture came sooner than I expected. It was 2 weeks after we met, when she invited me to a small charity event hosted by her family. She said it would be low pressure. She lied through her perfect teeth. The Sterlings didn't do small. Their idea of a low-pressure event was an evening that cost more than my yearly rent. I walked into the ballroom in a borrowed dress that didn't quite fit and shoes that pinched, and I instantly felt like a mistake someone had wrapped in cheap fabric and misplaced among pearls and champagne. Ava found me before the panic swallowed me whole. "You look beautiful," she said. "You look rich," I muttered. She laughed, the sound warm and real. "You'll get used to it." "Will I?" I whispered. She didn't answer. And maybe that should have been my warning. Because a few hours later, her mother found us. Margaret Sterling was the kind of woman who could end a person's career by raising an eyebrow. She looked at me like I was an unripe fruit someone had accidentally placed on a silver platter. "Ava," she said crisply. "A moment." Ava squeezed my hand before following her. I waited near a golden column, trying to blend into the wallpaper. But voices carry in marble rooms. "You cannot continue bringing people like her," Margaret hissed. "People like her. As if I were a different species. As if kindness and warmth were defects." I should have left. But I stayed because Ava came back with a tremble in her hands and a storm in her eyes. "Lily," she said. "Let's go." I didn't argue. We left the Sterling Empire behind us that night, walking through the cold, silent streets like two fugitives from expectation and privilege. She didn't cry, but I could feel the hurt radiating off her in waves. And for the first time, I realized how fragile she really was. The night air was sharp enough to burn our lungs, but Ava didn't care. She walked ahead, hands stuffed in her coat pockets, jaw tight, eyes flicking to me every few steps. I kept up, silently wondering how I had gone from a stranger on the sidewalk to someone so entwined with a girl who seemed untouchable. "You know," she said finally, her voice low, "I don't usually let people see me like that." "Like what?" I asked, careful not to sound too eager. "Vulnerable. Human. Flawed," she said. Her words were soft, but the weight behind them nearly knocked me off my feet. I thought about all the times I'd watched her on the streets, in cafes, in fleeting glimpses. She had always seemed like an object of fascination, a painting I could admire but never touch. But now she was here, walking beside me, stripped of every layer that made the world believe she was untouchable. "You don't have to hide with me," I said, surprising myself. She glanced at me, the corner of her mouth twitching, almost a smile. "Maybe that's why I keep finding you, Lily. You see me, not the sterling name, not the expectations, not the headlines." I wanted to argue that I saw more than she thought, that her layers of control and elegance fascinated me, but I only nodded. There was no need for words yet. We ended up at a small diner, the kind with flickering neon lights and sticky menus. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't perfect, but it was ours that night. We sat in a corner booth, each of us lost in our thoughts, sipping coffee and watching the rain streak the windows. "I should probably explain why I pulled you into this mess," Ava said, tracing the rim of her mug. "I don't usually do this. Let someone see me without armor." "You've done it before, haven't you?" I asked. Her laugh was soft, almost embarrassed. "Not like this. Not with someone I actually want around. I usually let people see the version of me that's convenient, beautiful, polished, untouchable. You've seen me. Broken. And you're still here." My chest tightened. "I'm here because I want to be. Because you matter. Because—" I trailed off. Words weren't enough. My heart hammered like it was trying to escape my ribs, and I realized that telling her why would make me feel vulnerable too. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine, tentative but deliberate. A spark shot through me, the kind that made everything else fade. The diner, the neon lights, even the rain outside, all irrelevant. There was only this moment, this quiet connection that felt like it had existed forever. "You make it too easy to get lost in you," she whispered. "Maybe that's the point," I said, my voice barely audible. She didn't respond, only squeezed my hand and let her gaze linger. I could feel the tension in her shoulders, the unspoken questions, the fear of letting someone in. And yet there was a hope there too, a fragile, dangerous hope that made my chest ache with longing. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen moments, whispered secrets, and quiet laughter. Ava introduced me to her world in fragments, small charity events where she could act human, late-night drives where the city lights blurred past, and nights on her balcony where we watched the stars and didn't need words. I learned to navigate her contradictions. The way she could be dazzlingly confident in public yet retreat into silence in private. The way she wanted freedom but was tied to expectations she could never escape. And the way her vulnerability pulled me closer, demanded my attention, and made me ache for her in ways I hadn't expected. Our relationship wasn't simple. There were fights, of course, arguments about boundaries, misunderstandings born of fear, and moments where I wondered if I had made a mistake. But every time we pulled apart, there was an invisible thread that pulled us back together, stronger than before. I remember one night in particular. We had spent the evening at a gallery opening her world, her people. I felt like an intruder in a painting I didn't belong in, surrounded by laughter and champagne and polite conversation that never reached the heart. Ava noticed immediately. She leaned close as we stepped out into the cool night, brushing her hand against mine. "You don't have to pretend here," she said. "I'm not pretending," I said, though I knew I was. I wanted to fit in, to be part of her world, to prove that I could be more than a bystander in her life. "Lies," she whispered, her eyes darkening with concern. "I can always tell." We walked in silence to a quiet park nearby, the city buzzing around us but unable to reach our little bubble. She stopped near a bench, looking at me with an intensity that made my knees weak. "You don't understand," she said finally, her voice breaking. "I've spent my whole life being perfect, doing what's expected, smiling when I don't want to. And for the first time, I don't have to be perfect around you. You see me, the real me, and it terrifies me." I reached for her face, cupping her cheek gently. "It doesn't terrify me. It's beautiful." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and she leaned into my touch. "I don't know how to be this normal, with feelings that aren't filtered by duty and legacy." "You don't have to know," I said softly. "You just have to let me be here, with you." And she did. That night, under the glow of the park lights, With the city alive around us, we kissed. Not a careless, fleeting kiss, but one that carried all the weight of our frustrations, our fears, and our longing. It was a kiss that promised more, that whispered of mornings spent wrapped in each other's arms, of quiet afternoons where the world didn't matter, of a love that would challenge everything we thought we knew. But love is never straightforward. The complications came swiftly. Ava's family, her mother in particular, was never fully accepting. Margaret Sterling's disapproval was subtle at first, a raised eyebrow, a careful choice of words, a sigh heavy with expectation. But Ava didn't flinch. She had always been stubborn, a trait that had driven her to the top of the social ladder, and now it drove her into my arms. Her father was kinder in his own way. He treated me with politeness, but the air of judgment was impossible to ignore. And the Sterling siblings, well, they were fascinatingly cruel and wonderfully human all at once. Their subtle jabs and teasing comments a constant reminder of the world Ava and I were trying to navigate. Through it all, we clung to each other. Our love became a fortress against expectation, against judgment, against the kind of loneliness that came with wealth and legacy. I learned to read her moods like a map, to know when to hold her hand and when to give her space, to comfort without suffocating. And she learned me. Ava learned the rhythm of my heart, the quiet ways I showed love, the humor I used to mask insecurity, the trembling hope I carried whenever she was near. She learned to let go in moments where she had always held tight, to laugh at the chaos of life, and to find beauty in imperfection. There were nights when we fought so fiercely I thought the world might end. Nights when words cut sharper than knives, when pride and fear collided in a storm of emotion. But every morning we woke up beside each other, our mistakes washed away by the light of new possibilities. I remember one morning vividly. Rain had fallen overnight, leaving the streets slick and glistening. We sat on the balcony of Ava's penthouse, wrapped in blankets, sipping coffee that was too bitter and talking about everything and nothing. You know, she said, tracing patterns on the glass, I used to think happiness was something you earned, something you worked for. But being here with you, I think it's something you let happen. I smiled, my heart full. I think you've earned it too in your own way. You just never believed it. She leaned against me, resting her head on my shoulder. Maybe I just needed someone to show me. You mean me? I teased lightly, though the warmth in my chest was anything but light. She nodded, eyes closing. Yes. You. For the first time I truly believed it. That love could exist without complication, without judgment, without fear. That two people, despite the odds, could carve out a space where they belonged to each other entirely. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. Ava's mother arranged meetings, social events, and introductions that challenged the fragile ecosystem we had built. Every decision was scrutinized, every word measured. I sometimes wondered if we were fighting a war we couldn't win. And yet we survived. We adapted. We grew stronger. Ava surprised me constantly. The way she advocated for me in her world, how she carved out moments of normalcy in a life that was anything but normal. The way she held my hand in crowded rooms, the way her eyes found mine across tables and parties, a secret language that only we understood. I surprised her too. By being honest, by being unwavering in my feelings, by challenging her when she needed it, and comforting her when she didn't even know she did. Together we became a team. Not flawless, not perfect, but unbreakable in the ways that mattered most. One night, as the city slept beneath us, Ava turned to me and said, "Do you realize how far we've come?" I nodded, unable to speak. Words felt inadequate. She smiled softly, brushing her hair back from her face. "I don't think I could ever go back to the person I was before you. You've changed me too," I whispered. "Made me braver, made me see that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, over and over, even when it's hard." Her lips met mine in a gentle kiss, tender and full of promise. "Then we're both lucky," she murmured. I held her close, knowing that the storm we had weathered together had forged something stronger than either of us could have imagined. A love that was resilient, passionate, and real. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to belong completely to someone, and to myself. And in that moment, as the wind whispered through the city, and the stars twinkled above, I knew that whatever challenges awaited us, we would face them together. Because we had already faced the hardest one ourselves. Spring arrived in Chicago like it had a personal vendetta against winter, dragging warmth and sunlight into every corner, melting ice and old fears alike. The city seemed alive in ways it hadn't been during the harsh winter months, and so did we. Ava and I had settled into a rhythm. Mornings were slow, our fingers tangled as we sipped coffee and watched the sunlight pool across her penthouse floor. Days were filled with laughter, errands, and moments stolen from the world that didn't understand us. Evenings were for quiet dinners, art galleries, or simply sitting on the balcony, letting the city hum beneath us. It wasn't always perfect. Nothing ever is. Margaret Sterling still had opinions, whispered comments at events we couldn't avoid. Ava's responsibilities sometimes threatened to swallow her whole, dragging her into a world I could never fully inhabit. But we had learned to navigate it together to protect what mattered most. One Saturday afternoon, I found myself at her family Estatia sprawling mansion that could have been mistaken for a small city, helping Ava organize a charity auction she had insisted I assist with. She was nervous, pacing the grand hall in a soft cashmere sweater, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, and I watched her in awe. The girl who had seemed so untouchable, so perfect, was here, vulnerable and real, and I loved every inch of it. "You're staring," she said suddenly, catching my gaze. I blinked, smiling sheepishly. "Am I? Sorry. You look incredible." Her cheeks flushed and she smirked, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Careful, Lily. Compliments like that come with expectations." I reached out, taking her hand. "Then I'll just have to meet them." She laughed softly, a sound that always made my chest feel too small for my heart. We moved through the event, side by side, guiding guests, making sure everything ran smoothly, and somehow finding moments of intimacy amid the chaos. A brush of her hand here, a whispered joke there, a stolen glance across the room. Each one was a small declaration of love, unspoken but deeply understood. Later, after the last guest had left and the mansion was quiet, we wandered into the gardens. The air was fragrant with blooming flowers, the sun low in the sky, casting gold across the lawns. Ava turned to me, eyes serious now, the playful mask replaced by something tender, raw, and unguarded. "I want you to know something," she said softly, taking both my hands in hers. "I've been scared of letting anyone in, scared of losing control, scared of love. But with you I feel brave. Feel alive." I felt my chest tighten, emotion threatening to spill over. "I feel the same. Being with you's not always easy, but it's real. And that's worth everything." She smiled, her eyes glistening. "Then there's no going back, is there?" "No," I whispered. "There's only forward. Together." Her hands found my face, and she kissed messily, fully, as if to etch the moment into our souls. I felt the tension, the fear, the uncertainty of the past months dissolve in that kiss. It was a promise, a vow, a declaration that we would face whatever came next, side by side. In the months that followed, our bond deepened. We shared dreams, whispered secrets in the quiet of her penthouse, and built a life that felt both delicate and unbreakable. The Sterling family gradually adjusted, the edges of disapproval softening as they witnessed the love that grounded Ava in ways they had never imagined possible. Her mother, Margaret, was the slowest to accept, but even she softened, observing from a distance the way Ava smiled when she was with me, the way we supported each other without demanding perfection. One evening, over wine in the estate's library, Margaret finally said, "You've made her happy." "I can see it." I nodded, feeling a warmth I hadn't expected. "That's all I want. For her to be happy." Ava squeezed my hand under the table, and I knew she felt the same gratitude, the same relief. We also built our own traditions, small acts that made our love tangible. Sunday mornings were for coffee and reading in bed, stolen afternoons for exploring the city and its hidden corners, late-night drives where we talked about nothing and everything. We laughed often, sometimes until our stomachs ached, and cried when life's complications reminded us we were human. One rainy afternoon, we found ourselves at the pier, the water reflecting the gray sky above. Ava had insisted we go, even though the storm threatened to soak us. She laughed as the wind tugged at her hair, her face lifted toward the sky, eyes closed. "Come on," she called, reaching for me. "Dance with me." I hesitated. "In the rain." "In the rain," she confirmed, smiling. So we danced. Silly, clumsy, joyful, our laughter mixing with the sound of raindrops. We didn't care who was watching or what anyone thought. There was only us, moving together, letting go of the past and embracing the fleeting magic of that moment. Afterwards, soaked and shivering, we collapsed on a nearby bench, wrapped in blankets Ava had somehow procured. She rested her head on my shoulder, and I leaned against her. You know, she said softly, I used to think love was complicated because it had to be. But it's not. It's complicated only if you let it be. With you. It's simple. It's home. Her words left me breathless, and I pressed a kiss to her temple. Home. That's exactly what it feels like. The turning point came quietly without fanfare or drama. One evening as we watched the sunset from her balcony, Ava turned to me with a look I hadn't seen before, a mix of certainty, hope, and love. Lily, she said, her voice steady, I don't want to imagine my life without you. I want every sunrise, every sunset, every messy, beautiful day with you. Will you? Will you be with me fully? No hesitation, no fear. I felt tears prick my eyes. The girl who had once been so untouchable, so guarded, was asking me to step fully into her world, and my heart had been ready for months. Yes, I whispered. 1,000 times yes. She smiled, relief and joy flooding her expression, and pulled me into an embrace that felt like the culmination of every challenge, every heartbreak, every stolen moment we had shared. We stayed like that, holding each other as the sun dipped below the horizon, the city lights blinking to life around us. From that day forward, life wasn't without its trials, but the trials didn't matter. We had each other. Our love became a sanctuary, a space where vulnerability was strength, laughter was medicine, and intimacy was sacred. We faced judgment, expectations, and the occasional misunderstanding, but nothing could shake the foundation we had built together. Ava's world and mine were different. Yes, but we learned to bridge the gaps. I attended charity events not as an intruder, but as her partner, her confidant, her equal. She visited my little apartment, fascinated by the tiny universe I had carved out for myself, appreciating every brushstroke, every sketch, every imperfection. We celebrated milestones quietly and boldly. We argued fiercely and reconciled with tenderness. We discovered that love isn't a perfect journey, it's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifying. But with the right person, it's the most beautiful adventure imaginable. On a warm summer evening as fireflies danced in the gardens of the Sterling estate, Ava and I stood hand in hand, watching the world glow around us. Do you remember that first morning? She asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The sidewalk, I said, smiling. You were crying, and I was a coward with a paper cup of coffee. She laughed, leaning against me. I never would have imagined it would lead here. Neither would I admitted. But I'm glad it did, she said, tilting her face toward mine. Because now, we're here. Together. I kissed her, a kiss full of gratitude, love, and promise. The storm had passed, the battles had been fought, and our hearts had found their home in each other. And in that moment I understood something profound. Love is not about perfection. It is about showing up, over and over, choosing each other even when it's hard. It's about vulnerability, trust, laughter, tears, and the quiet understanding that no matter what the world throws at you, you are not alone. Ava and I had learned to navigate the chaos, the heartbreak, and the complexities of life. And now, as we stood together, the world around us fading into the soft glow of twilight, I knew we had found something rare, something enduring, something worth every risk. We were home. Finally, completely and together. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.